Second. Okay, welcome everyone to City of Sunbury's Parks and Recreation Committee meeting for October 4th, 2023. It is about 5:30 p.m. Roll call, Amber.
Mr. Ghost,
Here.
Mr. Grumney,
Here.
Mr. Martin,
Here.
three present.
All right, let's go to the minutes section from our last meeting on September 6th, 2023. Do we have a motion for approval?
Motion approved.
Second. Second by Mr. Martin. Any changes?
No, I don't have, I think he did.
Okay. Roll call.
Mr. Grumney,
Yes.
Mr. Martin,
Yes.
Mr. Ghost,
Yes.
3 yeas, minutes pass.
All right, we'll go to the visitors section next, and lots of empty chairs out there, 100% empty. So we'll move right along to our new and unfinished business section. First up this evening, we continue our discussion of J.R. Smith Park Planning. Last week, I think it was Monday or Tuesday, September
It's on Monday.
25th or 6th. Myself and Mr. Hennessy, I think Alyssa was with us. We had a meeting with Ted Miller, who's the City of Delaware, I believe, Parks and Rec Director. He's got some experience with that current splash pad over there by the YMCA, and they're also in the design and planning stages of a second splash pad, a lot smaller, around 1,200 square feet. So we had a nice, robust discussion with him, probably almost an hour, I think. And in your packet, you will see from Alyssa, she summarized it really well. She also talked with Matt Ulrey with Westerville Parks and Maintenance. We'll get to that in a second. But first off, there with Mr. Miller, he was very helpful, as was Mr. Ulrey. And really, the bottom line that we came away with was the flow through system as opposed to the recirculating system is probably, again, the best way to go. And I think we were back to leaning in that direction to begin with after our last meeting. Even though it can be costly with the water cost per year, you can do some things to help offset that somewhat with pavilion fees and concession fees. And even if you do go with the recirculating system, there's still an annual cost of, 10 or 15,000 for water to use that, as well as maintenance, which can be anywhere between 20 and 30,000 a year. And that's for the more expensive recirculating system. And neither one of these persons recommended that. They both were pretty much adamantly in favor of the flow through based on their experience.
And Tim, wouldn't there also be a cost of city and time and employee to check the water and test the water? And if there's an incident to
That's right.
clean and do all that. So
Yes, that's right. It takes a lot more oversight, daily oversight, as a matter of
Do
fact.
we need to be in touch with Delco to use that volume of water? Would that impact their ability to provide the amount of water will use?
Any idea on that?
Yeah, I would say, it would be a substantial amount of water, but no more than a decent sized business
Right.
might use.
So it's about anywhere from 50 to 70,000 gallons per day.
Yeah, we want to confirm that that's a per day amount, but yes. It's a lot more than your typical household for sure. So we would definitely want to work with them.
Some other key points there. So if we do go with the flow through system, you want it, it's better to go the smaller, more neighborly looking splash pad with spray nozzles as opposed to those guns and things, because they both had a lot of experience in those things breaking down and wearing out really fast and having to replace them, and the parts are on hold. And meanwhile, you've got something there that's not working. And some of the manufacturers can be hard to deal with. Things go out of, style and out of stock. So basically just stick with the spray nozzles, which can be, they're interchangeable, and the pressure that they spew out can be changed, and they can be made to be more fun and differentiate on a daily basis. So in my opinion, I think that's the way we should go, and look at scaling it down as well to a smaller pad. Any further thoughts on that, Mr. Hennessy or Dan?
No, sir.
So maybe not Ted's comments, but just a quick summary of the other two communities.
Sure, yes.
That help?
Yeah, go right ahead.
Yeah, maybe Alyssa, she was the one who spoke with them, so.
Yeah, so you actually covered a lot of my points there. But so
Yeah.
Okay.
With Westerville and Grove City.
So yeah, I did speak with Matthew Ulrey, who is with the Parks Maintenance Department for the city of Westerville, and Kim Conrad, who is the Parks and Recreation Director for Grove City.
That's right. Yeah.
So Westerville does have a flow through system, and Mr. Ulrey stated that this was the best part of their splash pad. He recommended not having a recirculating system because you don't have to bother with filters, and that the system is similar to having and maintaining a pool. He stated that the cost of the water is not near the cost of the additional infrastructure, and their splash pad is about 1,200 square feet, and their water usage costs roughly around $25,000 a year. Kim Conrad stated that Grove City has a recirculating system, and that they partner with the YMCA to maintain the splash pad. The city paid for and installed the splash pad, and they pay the YMCA for maintenance, water usage, and chemicals. Maintenance and daily testing costs around $25,000 a year, and chemicals cost around $5,000 a year. She didn't know the exact size of the splash pad, but said it was a couple thousand square feet, and the water usage costs around $10,000 to $15,000 a year. She also said that if we decided to go with a recirculating system, she recommended that we hire someone with a pool maintenance certification, or send some of our maintenance workers to go through pool maintenance training.
Yeah, and so she recommended the recirculating primarily because they push off the maintenance to the YMCA,
Yeah.
and they don't have to deal with that. But they do pay them
I was
$25,000
gonna
a
say,
year.
add if there's a cost that Alyssa went through for that system, it doesn't seem like it makes a lot of sense to all that upfront money,
Mhm.
and then you're still paying the yearlies, which
Plus, she still pays $10,000 to $15,000 a year for the water,
right.
even with a recirculator.
Right, so when you add all that up, it's very similar to what you'd pay just in the water for
Right.
a run through.
Yeah, and Mr. Matt Ulrey also said they only spend 2 to 4 hours a year to make sure that everything's working right
Right,
on a flow through. That's probably a little light, but still, the point is, you don't spend much time on maintenance
right.
to flow through.
I have a couple, well, maybe a question, and a couple of comments, but so the original size we were looking at was what size? Was it?
I think we were targeting like 2,500 to 3,000.
Yeah.
3,000, yeah.
So,
At the very beginning, before we kind of
right.
knew what we were talking about.
So we're thinking more like the Westerville size now. I think you mentioned it was 1,200 square feet, I think was a Westerville. Are we looking a little bigger than that? And then would that reflect that the water costs go down because we've,
There's less
cut it in
nozzles.
half or,
Yeah.
by 25% or whatever
Right.
it is. So that was one thing, but I also, a couple things in the memo, again, yeah, I agree, Alyssa, you captured this very nicely. The ADA feature obviously is important.
Yes.
As we look to do this. And then I also like the idea about the landscape buffer or the additional concrete, so it doesn't get, because if that gets muddy and then that water starts running around, it just becomes a soup mess. So
Absolutely.
I like that idea. And then, of course, the shade as well,
Mhm.
because parents are going to sit there and watch their kids and not in direct sunlight in July. So,
There was another good point that was made by Ted. He said that it's good to have movable chairs or mainly movable chairs, because families and groups get together and they want to be in a circle or something. And so they have a pad where they have those they're called Adirondack chairs over there, and they're constantly being moved and
How do you keep theft? I was just thinking about if they're movable, that means they're movable in the sense of leaving the grounds. So,
Yeah, they're removable.
yeah. So I mean, I think it's a great idea, but you know, a lot of parks do have permanent structures, I think, for that reason, you know, like
Yeah.
cement benches or I just worry about.
Yeah, it was definitely a concern for Ted,
Yeah.
but he had indicated they've not experienced that problem. So
Okay.
they anticipated they may have that issue, but they have not had that.
Okay.
issue. So,
Okay,
and the other key point was shade, having some shade structure,
yeah,
and they have canopy.
yeah, so they've got a couple. I think they've got a fabric canopy that covers, one side of the splash pad area,
Yeah.
not the pad itself, but for anyone who might be watching. And then I think the umbrellas are referenced in here as well. So, which I think they created that space, I think initially as maybe a little bit more of an entertainment space, but found that the demand at the park was so great that people were, just using it to be at the splash pad and then just, hang out as a family or whatever the
Yeah.
case. So. Yeah, so they anticipated they might be moving those in and out a little bit more, but have found that they've really taken a little bit more permanent residency.
So
So, yeah, I mean, I think, John, to your point and to the chairman's point, I think we learned that, maybe we were sizing the splash pad a little bit too big. So as we talk about phasing here a little bit later, I think we'll talk about how we're thinking about resizing that. And then it does appear that there's an emerging consensus around the flow through system as opposed to the recirculating system. So those have been two good pieces of research, I think, that will help us when we get to the engineering phase.
Yeah, and just for confirmation, we have this memo that Ted sent us from a consultant OHM about monthly use of water, and they have 177,000 cubic feet a month, which correlates to about 45,000 a day. So that's probably
Okay.
right, because this is a smaller one, the one they're putting out on the south side of Delaware. So that is correct.
They're good.
okay, very good.
And how does that volume of water impact our wastewater treatment plant? Because if it's flowing through, it's got to go through there also.
Yes. It has 70,000 gallons a day. It is significant. It's not small. I was calculating here would be equivalent to about 175 people a day. So, divide that by household greenhouse.
Yeah.
However many they call it.
Yeah.
Per house. It's significant, but it's not outrageous.
Okay, in terms of next step and where do we go from here? What would you suggest? Dan or Mr. Henderson?
Well, like I said, as we followed for the benefit of the others, when we were on our working group call, one of the things we then tried to hone in a little bit more on is what could phase one look like.
Right.
And I think therein is kind of where I think the next step is, can we get consensus around what phase one looks like? The sizing of the splash pad and what have you. And then we're ready to kind of move on to, like I said, engineering. And then once we've done the engineering, I really think we'll be in a position to figure out how to, bid the project. We got to figure out how to finance the project and what grants we can be seeking, that kind of stuff.
Can I ask a generic question? So if we reduce the size of the splash pad and go to the flow system versus the upfront cost for the recirculating system, does that, and maybe I'm asking this too far in advance, but does that allow us to do more in phase one than maybe what we had planned because we're reducing the costs and can,
I think so.
yeah.
Possibly, yes.
Okay.
Yes, but I think there's probably a general consensus here, the committee, that 1,500 square feet and it would be appropriate, I think, to begin a design for. Does that sound okay with you all?
That's good to me.
So maybe, why don't we jump into the phase,
Yes.
and kind of see how that fits in. So if you pull that up, it's actually in the packet as well.
Yeah, the other half of our touch base meeting dealt with how to phase the entire park.
Yeah.
And what we really want to focus on is the initial phase.
Mhm.
So what you see here before you is what Rich with CT came up with. He essentially has the pavilion there and the pad. We have the asphalt parking lot, the perimeter trail. What you do not see then is the playground or the nice entry walkway plaza areas yet. So that would be in phase 2 or 3, and then the pickleball courts with the basketball transition are left out as well.
Yeah. So I would say, I mean, if you think about J.R. Smith Park today, I mean, this would be a significant change from its current use. And I think it would, personally, I think it would generate a lot of excitement in the community to have something like this. Maybe there's some heavy head nodding here next to me. So
Amber and nearby
Amber.
neighborhood, what's your thought? How do you feel about
Well, the feedback I get is everybody just wants to see something down there. They're ready for something to be down there.
Okay.
I'm ready for something to be down there, and I think this is great.
it? Okay,
I think this will make a lot of people very happy.
yeah, so if again, with general consensus that this sounds like a good place to start, then I think we can then start thinking about the design or the engineering piece of it. And the true costing out of the project.
yes, agreed here.
Yes, absolutely. And just to reiterate, so this rendition though assumes the larger splash pad, and does this assume a recirculating system, or does this assume the?
So actually, this is probably going to be a smaller pad.
Yeah, it may end up being a little smaller than what he's showing there, but I think we've got the guidance to.
Yeah,
1,500 give or take, and then that's a smaller one, and this is going to be the flow through.
right. So I was wondering, like, and then could you actually add the entrances then if you're going to save money on the,
Yeah, I mean,
Maybe one
Yeah.
on one side.
yeah, I was gonna say, it's still a pretty significant
Yeah.
project. So when you think about the pavilion, restrooms,
yeah, right.
the reworking of the paved surfaces, there's also some sort, I think, grading work that would probably need to be done. The other thing we'll need to do, which is separate from the Parks Board, is I do think there is a sanitary sewer improvement we need to make in the park as well. So we'll want to think about
right.
that
Yeah.
as well. I think it's sanitary. I don't think it's storm, but it's one of those. We'll confirm.
My guess is that's probably between 1 and 1.5 million right there.
Yeah, I think it is absolutely in that ballpark.
Looking at.
Well, that's what I mean. I think we'll give Rich just a little bit more guidance. I know he's started to cost it out, but I think based on this feedback, just a little bit more guidance and let him come back to us with one more guesstimate.
Okay. And are we up against any deadlines in terms of grant? Well, Nature Works, I know the phasing and the grant timing, we've had conversations. Isn't Nature Works, doesn't that have to be applied for like November 1st?
I'm not sure what the date, that's the OPWC timeframe. I'm not sure what the
Yeah.
nation's timeframe is. I'd have to check.
Dana, do you know?
I'm looking at right
I don't have that with me. I forgot to bring that.
And what do you think that the engineering timeline is though? Probably
Timeline?
timing. Yeah. How long would it take to do that?
3-4 months.
Okay, right. So we're first quarter of next year when we've got something pretty firm
Yeah.
that we could go out and begin to get bids on.
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Does that have to be done before we can apply for a grant though?
Normally, yes. You have to have a firm cost estimate in order to do that. You have to have a good design. Plus, I want to, excuse me, again, I want to know what features are included and how it's laid out. I'll put it this way, I'm not done without a full engineering set.
Okay. I see. Go ahead, Dana.
The Nature Works grant is due until June 1st of next year, so that's like, we have several months for that one. The Land Water Conservation Fund that's through the ODNR.
Yeah.
That one is due November 15th. And then there's the capital projects budget, which I couldn't find the. I had to check their website for a few weeks, but I know that it's due in the fall before next year's budget. So it'll be due probably around the same time frame as the ODNR. So November, I'm assuming, but I'll get some more information on that one. And that's the big one that we would really want to pursue and hopefully get a piece of.
Can that be pursued again next year?
I think it's every other year.
Yeah, the state capital the budget is every other year, but there's is it the community investment fund? Am I using the right term? That remember the one you would reference it, but you also heard Morpsey talking about it as well. Is it community investment fund? I think it might be something like that. It looks like they've kind of maybe adopting a slightly different model in terms of considering these community projects. So we'll research that a little bit more and see if that's an every other year cycle or if that's one time only money that we need to, maybe we need to accelerate, not necessarily the design. We won't have that ready, but maybe we can piece together enough to be able to put in an application.
Yeah, I really want to target an application for that.
Yeah, that's what I mean. So
I have a really good feeling that there might be a substantial amount of money available.
she thinks it's in the mid-November timeframe. Yeah. Yeah, we'll confirm.
Okay. Just let me know what you find. This is Wednesday. Let me know what you find out, Mr. Hennessy, either tomorrow or Friday. In terms of timing that, getting that in.
Okay.
And then if we need to, we'll have our regular touch base session. If we need to expedite that, we'll do so.
Mr. Miller also confirmed, I texted Ted, he confirmed that number, but he did say it's an average, sometimes more, sometimes less,
On the water.
70 grand.
Yeah. Okay. Okay, very good. Anything further on that, gentlemen?
Will the water come on, be on motion sensors or somebody pushes a button to make water flow?
Should be the button procedure.
Okay.
And then once it's pushed, it usually runs for 5 to 7 minute cycle.
Yes,
Okay,
you can adjust that time.
Yeah, you can adjust the amount of the pressure, the water coming in and out and the time.
Yeah, that's a good point
Yeah.
too about the adjusting the pressure. If we get those, water saving nozzles, we can probably save a significant percentage of that water in it. Cause I don't think they use that at the YMCA site in Delaware.
because there's gonna be some cause and effects of experimenting with how it's all working even as it's going. So
Yes.
we have to be open to those options, I think.
Mhm.
Thank you.
Okay, very good. Let's move on to playground options. So we do have to, this is not as pressing, obviously, as splash pad is, since we're gonna push this into phase 2 probably sometime next year, late next year, or maybe into the following year. But preliminarily, I had Mr. Hinkle with Mid-States do some research. What you see in your packet and on the screen here is what he came up with based on some themes of farming and rural community, which we believe we are still. And so this is kind of what he came up with. Not saying this is what we have to do or anything by any means. It's just something to look at and something to consider and get your thoughts and feedback on. And he also told him to look at something that was more natural looking for the materials.
Yeah.
So that's why you see that in there.
So Amber's just flipping through the same pictures that are in your packet, but just,
Yeah.
a little bit bigger for you to see. So I think that maybe just a couple of other guiding principles. One, we wanted to make sure, at least in our early thinking, right? It's as I think the chairman indicated, an accessible playground.
We definitely want that.
People of
Absolutely.
all abilities.
Mhm.
And the other thing I think we were kind of trying to get at was maybe a sort of a broader range of youth that would be engaged, you know, on a playground of this type. So I think that's the beginnings of what you see here.
Mhm.
So. And as the chairman said, I mean, we, you know, don't envision this to be a part of phase one, so we don't necessarily have to land on, you know, the amenities associated with playground, but I think just want to get you start thinking a little bit about how it could
You see a
interact with.
picture of the wagon. There's one there with a wagon that Mr. Hinkle was able to find. I asked him to look for that because of us being a city, being a stagecoach town. It's kind of thinking of maybe find a wagon of some kind thingy, but this is really the only thing he could really find on his end that he had access to. Also asked him to look for maybe a horse, perhaps, or a cow, or some kind of livestock animal that you could climb on, because climbing features are a thing. I don't think you see that in any of these at the moment. But he's just, you know, just one source,
Yeah.
a very good source. I think what we'll do is keep reaching out to some other sources and see what else might be out there.
I do lean towards the look of option one over option two. As far, option two looks a little more industrial. I don't know, looks a little
Yeah,
bit more.
can you go back to one, Amber? Start with one.
Yeah, I kind of like that look better.
Okay, do you like that right there, the rocks there?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
What do you think your neighbors would say about that, Amber? Any idea? You like that?
That resident,
Yeah.
voice of the people.
I like this because it's not bright and out of place. It's
Mhm.
gonna flow nicely down there,
Yeah.
because now you drive past and all you see is that big yellow and red brick building, and I don't care for that. I like this, and it doesn't look, like John said, mechanic-y, like it's
Mhm.
natural, it's flowy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I see 12-year-olds playing here, 13-year-olds playing here, especially on these rocks, jumping off of them and stuff, which they're gonna do whatever you put in there.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Just make a soft ground, that's all.
Yeah. that's all that matters. But Westerville has stuff like this and kids play on it all
Yeah.
the time.
Yeah,
It catches your eye too as you drive by.
It's the good.
yeah,
You like that too?
yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I like that little tree stump,
Mhm.
logs.
I like the look of option one better also.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was leaning toward that one too. Okay, well, we'll certainly keep this option on the table. And I'll do my best to try and seek out some more different designs for us to consider. Any comments from Mr. Hennessy or Mr. White? Alyssa, anything? Okay. All right, very good. Any other discussion on J.R. Smith for tonight? Okay. All right, let's go to the other parks update section. Sunbury Memorial Park. I know you want to talk about foundation, Mr. Hennessy, but I'm still curious about how the other thing
Yes,
went down
I was
earlier
gonna-
this week.
I was going to mention that as well. So maybe just a couple of updates on the park.
Exhumation, I should say, yes.
Yes. So as we talked about, the cemetery is considered a city park, and so we bring this to the Parks Committee. I think we've indicated that it's been a very busy summer at the cemetery this year. A lot more active maybe than we've had in prior years. And the foundation orders, I think, reflect that as well. So just to give you a sense of how this works, each year or twice a year, the city will receive requests to install the concrete foundation that the headstone rests on. We contract with a third party to install the concrete foundation, and that's not uncommon in a lot of cemeteries to do something like that. So we have a spring foundation period, and we have a fall, and this is the fall list. And as you can see, we've got 22 requests for foundations. I would say this is easily double the number we had last year in the fall, and in the spring it may be 2 or 3 times higher than what we did in the spring. So it's again been a really busy summer at the park. The other thing I just want to point out is that the column to the far right. So the contractor that we work with provides a cost to us. So there's a minimum charge associated with installing a pad, regardless of the size. And the minimum is $450. One of the things we, I think, have discovered is that we do have, I think, one of the higher rates when it comes to the minimum charge for foundations. So we have asked at least one other contractor to provide a bid to us if they would be interested in providing this service to us. I mean, that's an expense to the family, a pretty sizable expense to the family if we're able to get that down a little bit. So, obviously the cost of all the construction materials has gone up pretty significantly. We are definitely seeing that as it relates to these foundations. So we'll get that. And once we get a little bit more pricing information, we'll be back to talk to you a little bit about that and see if we want to go in another direction with our third party contractor. So,
Okay.
that is just what I wanted to tell you on foundations. And then, unless there are any other questions on that, I'll jump to another topic. It's not on the agenda, but I did want to note. So earlier this week, we did a disinterment and reinterment. As you may recall, the Ohio Department of Commerce, their Cemetery Dispute Resolution Board, asked the city to relocate the remains of an individual in the cemetery. This is not a common thing by any stretch of the imagination. And I know in conversations with an employee who had worked for the city for years and years and years, he recalls having done it once. And that was many years ago, and that had more to do with kind of the placement being in the wrong place after they kind of sorted through locations. But anyway, so we were ordered to do that. The probate judge filled out an order and basically directing the city to do this interment. That happened yesterday. I can say that it went very smoothly. It was done principally by our staff with the assistance of a vault company to help lift the vault out of the grave and move it to the other one. So this disinterment and reinterment occurred within the cemetery. So just moved from one side of the cemetery to the other. The principal concern was that the location of the original grave site was a low area. And despite efforts to improve the drainage around that, never really got it to a point that was satisfactory for the family. So obviously we will take that space and maybe a couple more around it offline in future updates to the cemetery map. So anyway, so that's done. And again, about as well as it could have gone. The family was present for a reinterment ceremony. And then I did have a chance to speak with them a little bit. So it was a hard day for them, obviously, but they seemed to be happy with what happened. So.
All right. Very good. Excellent. Thanks for the update.
There was no expense to the family though.
No, the city incurred the costs
Okay.
of the relocation. And it wasn't particularly expensive. I mean, it's the cost of a plot, it's the cost of the vault company to be here to provide their services. We did have a standby vault available, but we didn't need to use it.
Okay.
So how old approximately had that particular grave site been?
About 6 years. So it's been an issue for the last few years.
Very good. I'm glad to see that get resolved.
Yep.
Okay, thank you. Next item on our list this evening is the Reservoir Park project update.
So Dan, maybe just, a little bit about where we are with the bid process, what's happening.
We held we tried to hold a pre-bid meeting last week and we had no show. Nobody showed up for that, but so we, in recognition of that, we decided to go ahead and extend the bid date until Monday.
Okay,
And we did an email blast to, I don't know, 20 or 30 contractors, and we have had a good response. I hadn't told you yet. We've had 3 calls today from bidders, so I know we'll probably have at least 3 bids.
oh, good.
So that was Kokosing, Ironside, and I can't remember the third, but hopefully they seem very positive about it. It wasn't Park. They haven't called me.
So with the timeliness of that grant, where we have to have construction commencing, I think before the end of the year.
It is in the specs that they must mobilize by December 15th,
Okay.
which constitutes beginning of construction.
So will you need a touch base meeting between now and the next Parks meeting? Or because the next one won't be until that first week in November,
That
next
is-
Parks meeting.
That's a good point. We probably,
I think we've got the working group, a standing meeting.
Okay,
Alyssa, check on that just to make sure, but I think we have a standing meeting with the working group.
that'll be okay.
Yeah.
Okay,
okay.
But I think actually maybe the other point here though is that we did have a pretty accelerated time frame for getting it back in front of council. So we might be trying to get it back to council at the next meeting, the mid-October meeting. So that would be prior. So if we need to reconvene the working group, I guess we could do that prior to that date. Alyssa will work on that. Okay.
okay. And any questions?
Sure.
Anything further on that?
No, that's where we stand.
And when you get the bids in next week, can you send them over to me? And
I will have some, I'll be on vacation next week, but I'll have one of our guys make sure they do that.
and we'll have Mr. Hennessy or Alyssa share them with you guys too. Okay, very good. Any other unfinished or old business, new business to discuss?
I
Amber,
just want to update you guys. The concrete pads have gone in and the benches have been delivered. For the Healthy Living grant that we got.
right,
And then the bike racks have been delayed because they're custom, but they said they should be in by 10/20. So hopefully we'll have everything up and running.
And where are the benches going again? Sorry.
There's gonna be one in front of the municipal offices.
Okay.
And then there's gonna be one over here because there wasn't a set one over here.
Perfect.
This slab out here is for a bench? Okay. Somebody asked me that yesterday at Rotary and I told them a bench was going there and they said, oh, okay.
They came in today, so we just gotta get
Oh,
them put
cool.
together. So,
and the other slabs over there now
yeah.
in front of the building. Okay, great. Thanks for that update. All right, very good. Motion for adjournment,
Motion adjourned.
Mr. Grundy,
Second.
second by Mr. Martin. Any other discussion? Go ahead.
Mr. Grumney,
Yes.
Mr. Martin,
Yes.
Mr. Ghost.
Yes,
3 yeas, we're adjourned.
very good.